Greetings and welcome, or hopefully welcome back. Before we begin, let me take a few moments to say the following. Like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and more importantly, share this video. Share it with your mom, your minister, or the mailman. Let's try and get this channel past 1,000 subscribers. And while you're busy trying to figure out why that package is ticking, be sure to check out my Patreon channel. Consider becoming a subscriber and help keep Gregor energized with pizza and beer. Seriously, Gregor's half the magic here, so let's give him some love. The links are in the video description and in the page description on both YouTube and Rumble. And lastly, a quick shout out to my Tier 3 and 4 patrons. Russ of the Frozen North, New 5AC, Nick, Zachary Langmead, Scared Wolf 1206, Zachery Raney, and Roma Invictus. Thank you very, very much. And now, on with the story. The Deathworlders, a story by Philip R. Johnson, a.k.a. Hambone, Hambone HFY, and Hambone 3110. Chapter 29. Forges. Part 6. Date point. 10 years, 7 months AV. Michael Full High School, Folkta, Cimbrean, the Far Reaches. Adam Ades. Despite being a head teacher in charge of a few hundred pupils rather than the homeroom tutor in charge of just a handful as she'd been when Adam had been in her class, Jess had never got around to selecting a different look for the workplace. Long skirt, black cardigan, red scarf. It was her working uniform, and so iconic that whenever the kids wanted to poke affection and fun at her, they never needed to work very hard at it. Possibly, it was why Jess had stuck with the distinctive look. She had a policy of not taking herself too seriously at work, though she took the work very seriously indeed.
Thanks for doing this, Adam.
Like I said, de nada. I hope I can help. Used as he was to the narrow hallways and corridors of HMS Sharman's administrative building, Adam was still feeling self-consciously huge as he followed his stepmom. Everything was just a little low, teenager height or lower, and next to Jess's slim avian figure, he was well aware that he cut a near freakish figure. He tried not to let it bother him when two wide-eyed girls in the school's uniform of a light powder blue polo with a gray sweater stood aside to let them pass, and then dashed away laughing and whispering to each other. Jack Tisdale was lounging around in an empty classroom with his feet up on a desk, radiating disheveled contempt for frivolities like the uniform. He'd found a tennis ball somewhere and was bouncing it off the wall when he entered. Jess just sighed and confiscated it, even as Jack straightened up and adjusted his clothes, aware that something different was going on.
"I'll leave you two to talk,"
Jess said, and made herself scarce. Adam would have liked to sit down, but he was innately wary of furniture nowadays. None of the plastic seats were either large or strong enough. He settled for leaning against the door and folding his arms. Jack stared at him for several long minutes.
"Jesus, Adam,"
he declared at last.
"Ava said you got big, but..."
"Yeah?"
"Why are you here?"
Adam tilted his head.
"To help out a friend." "Oh, what? Jess needs your help with the naughty kid."
Jack made a frustrated noise and stood up. He only looked rail thin, Adam realized. On closer inspection, he was carrying some respectable muscle definition on that skinny frame. It was doubtful he'd ever be strong, but he was certainly not as weak as first glance might suggest. But he wasn't strong either, as the scabbed wounds on his lip and eyebrow attested.
"Jess isn't my friend, man. She's my stepmom."
"We hardly know each other. We're not friends," Jack snapped dismissively.
"Bullshit."
Before Jack could reply, he'd been grabbed and pulled irresistibly into an Adam Ades trademarked hug. Not even baseball could escape those.
"Get off! Let go! Get off me, you big... Ah!"
Jack squirmed, fought, pushed, twisted, and at one stage Adam guessed maybe even tried biting. Then he went still. Then, very slowly, he hugged back. Date point. 10 years, 7 months AV. The Box. Omaha, Nebraska, USA, Earth. Allison Bueller. The treadmill in their living space was, cleverly, part of the couch. A hidden catch on the side of the couch allowed for the squishy city bit, as Xiu had named it, to be rolled back into the wall, revealing the treadmill's deck, the handholds and controls of which simply lifted upwards and clicked into place. Julian hated it. But then again, Julian disliked exercising full stop. He'd always kept in shape through labor, be it splitting firewood, clearing brush, landscape management, hunting, whatever. The need to actually put dedicated time and effort into his fitness was one he accepted, but that didn't mean he had to like it. Allison routinely had to order him onto the treadmill, or pick up his weights. She usually wound up doing her yoga practice nearby so as to encourage him. The new titanium reinforcement in his foot turned out to have been such a minor change in the weight and balance of it that it adapted inside a day or two, much to his embarrassment, and it had improved his running gait impressively. Before, he'd had kind of a shuffling, cautious stride that favored his prosthetic and minimized the impact on his fragile synthetic bones. With that concern repaired, he now loped along with a fluid, easy, toe-first stride that made surprisingly little noise, and he could keep it up all day. Xiu, meanwhile, was showing off her disgusting core strength by doing one-arm toes-to-bar sets. She wasn't actually showing it off, of course. That was an ordinary part of her routine, but every time Allison watched her do it, she felt a little inadequate. Her own fitness had improved dramatically under Dane's guidance, and she could do toe-to-bar sets herself, but the one-handed ones just eluded her. She wound up swinging like a rung bell, whereas Xiu's movement was smooth, controlled, and precise. Then, of course, there was the other part of training day, station drills. The box would occasionally produce one of 4 chimes, summoning one or all of them to their workstations. The idea being that no matter what you were in the middle of, you downed tools immediately, paused only for fire safety or other danger concerns, and went straight to work. The worst ones were when they went off at night. Xiu let go of the bar the second her chime went off, gave them both a wave, and headed for a simulator with the sports drink in hand, toweling herself. "Want to bet we get an all-stations chime in 5 minutes?" Allison asked, pushing her arms forward and her leg out into the Warrior 3 position. "You're on. Bathroom cleaning." Take back?" Allison hated cleaning the shower. It inevitably meant digging a sodden wad of dark hair that could have belonged to either Julian or Xiu, probably both, out of the drain trap. "Not on your life." Allison sighed, breathed through her position for half a minute, then returned to a lunge. "Fine. You can clean the air filter then," she said, another of her favorite jobs. The air filter in the actual ship would have been there to extract dust from their atmosphere before it was processed through the life support system. The simulated one was full of icing sugar and glitter instead. Somebody in their simulation team had a sense of sadistic humor. "Fair," Julian conceded. "Oh, hey, seeing as she's not here," Allison began. "No complaining about Xiu behind her back, remember?" Julian said. "Not complaining, I swear," Allison objected. "She just—" "What?" "Do you know what whiny means?" Allison asked. Julian turned his head slightly. "She said that to you?" "Yeah." Julian smiled warmly. "It means I love you." "That's what I thought." "Is that a big deal? She said it before," Julian pointed out. "She said she loves us before. I love you guys, you know. This one was for me personally." "So, what's the problem?" Allison returned to a neutral stance and shook her limbs off. Now that the bar was vacant, it was her turn on it. "It's not a problem, you're fine. 2 girls, woohoo, right?" "I guess," Julian said cautiously. "Meanwhile, for me, it's been like, surprise, Allison, you're gay now. That takes some adjusting to." She sighed. "I'm not complaining. It's great, but I kind of feel off balance about it sometimes, you know?" "You've really committed to it, though. Got that cute butch haircut and everything." Julian grinned evilly at her. She ripped one of her sweatbands off her wrist and threw it at him. "This is not a butch haircut, you ass!" In an impressive display of coordination, without breaking stride, he juggled and caught it after it bounced off his shoulder. "You're the ass, you butt," he retorted, tossing it back to her with a laugh. She threw it at him again. "You're the butt, dummy!" The sweatband ping-ponged between them. "I'm not." "R2." "Uh-uh." Laughing, Allison slipped the sweatband back onto her wrist. "Come over here and call me a butt to my face." He shook his head, still grinning. "No, ma'am." She gasped, mock scandalized. "Bad boy! How dare you call me a butt?" "We need to finish our exercise or they'll fail us and we won't go to space," he pointed out. "I don't have time to call you a butt." she feigned grumbling. Damn you and your sensibleness. He chuckled. You can punish me later. I can, huh? Allison gave him an appraising up and down. Well, I'm already cleaning that air filter for you, so I'm going to be covered in glitter anyways, he pointed out. Oh, now you're just inviting me to be cruel, Allison said. You're going to actually exercise any time today? Julian asked, cheekily earning himself at least a 1-point hike in that evening punishment. Fine, but you're going to regret taunting me, mister. He snorted. Promises, promises. Date point. 10 years, 7 months AV. Michael Full High School, Folkta, Cimbrean, the far reaches. Adam Oddies. I'm like this glass child that they've got to protect. Like, they think I'm stupid enough to get myself shot too, you know? Adam nodded. The trademarked hug had worked its magic yet again, but the real trick was listening. He listened. He let Jack get it out of his system. Really, all he'd done was to, as Sykes had once described it to him, unlock the paddock and let the colt run until it got tired. All he had to do now was sit cross-legged on the floor, listen, and throw away everything he thought of saying. It wouldn't do to try to talk Jack's problems out. Not yet. The poor guy was a crackling Tesla coil of anger with no clue where that anger should go. Now that it was spilling out of him, it was earthing itself everywhere, in the school, in Adam, in the world in general, in his parents, and in his late sister. Adam could relate. After the first few hours of simply not being able to believe what had happened, he'd been furious with Sarah. He'd felt guilty about it for a while until he'd learned about the stages of grief and how anger was a natural part of the progression. One that Jack appeared to have got himself stuck on, and all of that energy needed to dissipate before anything Adam might say would be constructive. Besides, some of the things he was saying were painful to hear, and even managed to make Adam a bit angry. They hit so close to home. But Adam was good at staying quiet, controlling his expression, and listening. Jack finished his tirade by hooking a foot under one of the classroom chairs and kicking it across the room. Why am I even telling you this? You can't even relate, can you? You've got your shit sorted out. A direct question got a direct answer. Nah, man. I've not got my shit sorted out at all. Come off it, Jack gave him an exasperated stare. Look at you. You're on TV escorting gowans, and you're meant to be like this badass super soldier, whatever, and how fucking strong are you? Honestly, bro, I'm the strongest man alive. See? Dude, do you even know how fucked in the head you have to be to even try to become what I am? It feels great, but the price I pay is constant pain. Not being able to trust the furniture. I have a worse time finding clothes that fit, and I have to eat chicken and rice with supplements every goddamn hour. He gestured to the meal tote he was carrying with him to make the point. Does that really sound like I've got my shit together? Whatever. Jack flung himself into a chair and sulked some more. Adam decided to change tack. Okay, let's say I do have it all sorted out, he said. I'll give you that one. Let's say I do. Man, I'm not asking for pity here or anything, but you know what kind of shit I went through? Ain't no way anybody could blame me for being a complete fuck-up, so why do you think I'm not? I don't know. Maybe you're just special. Maybe you're just lucky. That one got under Adam's skin. Lucky? If there was any word that simply didn't fit his life, lucky was it. He was still working on restoring his calm when Jack surprised him by wiping his eyes and clarifying. I tried, he said. I thought perhaps I could at least get strong, like Dad, or like you, something, but I can't even do that. Every time Dad goes to the gym, I go with him, and after all this time, I'm still this skinny, weak piece of nothing. Bet you can swim like a fish, though, Adam observed. Me? I sink like a stone nowadays. Great, I can swim. Contempt for that particular blessing oozed from every syllable. Adam had to laugh a little. He would have liked to point out that swimming was a vital skill for a PJ, and that having sacrificed his buoyancy on the altar of raw strength, he'd never properly dive again, which meant that he'd never again be a proper pararescueman. But he was conscientiously trying to talk about Jack rather than himself. Don't knock it.
Swimming is fucking useful, bro.
This did not seem to persuade Jack, so he tried a different angle.
You know, one of the people I admire the most is one of our NCOs. She ain't big, she ain't strong. She can't do any of the shit I do. Her deadlift is like my hammer curl.
Jack gave him the classic sulky teenage look. And
I can't do any of the shit she can do.
Adam sat forward to make sure he was selling the point.
It's not about what you can do, Manito. Everybody in the world can't do pretty much everything. It's about figuring out what you can do.
What if what I can do is useless?
No such thing.
Jack retorted skeptically.
No, really, Adam insisted. My CO, he talks about the spear tip. How me and the guys, we're the sharp bit right at the end. And that's the bit everybody's scared of. Nobody ever thinks about being the long bit of wood behind that. But I can tell you what, man. If you took the spear tip off the end of that long bit of wood, all you have is a crappy knife.
So what can I do, Adam? Jack asked.
Bro, you've got game. No, listen.
Adam raised his hand to shut off Jack's sarcastic interjection.
Game counts for fucking everything. You don't just want to make a difference in life. You need to, right?
Slowly and cautiously, Jack nodded.
Dude, I can't just relate to that. That is literally my whole life, Adam told him. It'd eat me up too if I thought there was nothing I could do, but there is. You just gotta find your direction and head that way. Guys like me, we ain't lucky. We're just a shitty-ass knife. It's everybody else who makes us work.
Jack was silent for a long time. You really think I could do something? He asked at long last.
Dude, you've got the kind of dedication that can do anything. You just need to figure out where to put it.
Could I join the SOR? Adam took a deep breath.
For real? You won't be an operator. And even if you could be, I'd tell you no. Be smart and leave that shit for the dumb fucks like me. But man, I reckon you'd make a kick-ass support tech. And without the techs, there wouldn't be an SOR.
Jack pushed his glasses up his nose and nodded thoughtfully.
Tell you what, Adam offered. You decide you want to do this, I'll talk with your mom and dad and we'll get you on a training plan. I reckon we could surprise you, and you'd need to study real hard. There's a lot of learning for a tech.
He paused to consider.
Marty could probably help a lot. She's like at least as smart as I am strong. Hell, I bet she'd love to help. She'd be a hard teacher, though. Think you could handle it?
Maybe.
No fucking maybe, Adam corrected. Either you set a goal and try, or you don't. So here's your fucking goal, okay? Prove you're worth my time. No more fights. No more making your teachers' lives hell. You take all that anger and you put it to work.
Can you teach me how to fight properly?
Heh, Adam chuckled when he saw himself in that question and sobered quickly. I can, he said, when you earn it.
Date point, 10 years, 7 months AV. The Box, Omaha, Nebraska, USA, Earth. Xiu Chang. The Yes Ma'am game was Xiu's guilty thrill. Saying it, having it said to her, didn't matter. It was fun. Julian and Allison sometimes took it to another level, though. Xiu would be first to acknowledge that her experience with human sexuality was mostly theoretical. In fact, she would have said that she knew more about Gowan sexuality than her own species, were it not for the fact that the Gowans were so straightforward that describing their mating urges as sexuality was basically inaccurate. This had been the inevitable cause of some difficulty when Xiu's precious stash of Earth media, the one that Ima had purchased for her, had turned out to include the film version of 50 Shades of Grey. Ima and Rigari had naturally wanted to know why Xiu didn't want to watch it with them, and had put on a fascinating display of bewildered ear semaphore as she had squirmed, stammered, and blushed her way through explaining the concept of BDSM, a subject on which she was scarcely better educated than the Gowans, and erotica in general. What Al and Julian got up to wasn't BDSM, or at least not as Xiu understood it. Neither of them seemed remotely interested in ropes, whips, or silly toys. What they were interested in was that they would occasionally turn the Yes Ma'am game up to 11, and Julian would have put his absolute faith and trust in Allison. he would invite her to use him, and Allison would obey. What Xiu had noticed was that obey was entirely the correct description. Despite the apparently subservient role he was playing, Julian was the one with the real power in their relationship. He could stop the game instantly with a word, and that was true in day-to-day life as well as in their intense sessions. He liked to pretend that he was a meek and submissive plaything of his girl's, but every so often, when he was tired, stressed, or horny, she caught a glimpse of the wary, wildly dangerous wolf of a man who lived under the sanguine exterior, playing at being a lapdog. A little scary, and a lot exciting. The problem Julian and Allison had run into was the total lack of privacy, and the multiple showers in their daily routines meant that nudity had completely lost its sting for all of them, even for Xiu. This had robbed Allison of a powerful tool for playing the game that Julian wanted to play, and their constant proximity had robbed them of space to push into new and more thrilling territory without violating Xiu's comfort zones. Now that problem seemed to have reached a tipping point.
So he dared you extra hard?
Allison watched Julian thoughtfully. For now, he was still trying to comb glitter out of his hair, while the girls had a quiet conversation, pitched low enough that he shouldn't be able to hear.
Babe, I love you, but Julie and I have had way less sex since you came along. We're both horny as shit. So have sex, Xiu hissed. We've been over this. I want you guys to. Yeah, but we all nest out on the floor every night together, Allison pointed out. It doesn't feel right banishing you back to your bunk. Al, Xiu touched her own forehead. We've got to try and make this stuff normal for all our sakes. I want you two to have a healthy sex life, even if I never manage. You think you never will?
Xiu shook her head emphatically.
No, I will. I need to ease into it, that's all.
Allison nibbled thoughtfully on a fingernail.
Babe, what is it about sex that makes you so nervous? She asked.
Xiu just turned her head and touched a finger to the scar on her throat.
I've been wondering where you got that, Allison confessed. What happened?
Xiu knew her expression had gone cold.
This is where Zane held me against a wall with a knife to my throat, and a hand. You know what? It doesn't matter where his hand was. I didn't want it there. Jesus, baby. It doesn't matter, Xiu repeated. I love Julian. I trust him completely, but there's nothing that kills my mood faster than flashing back to that moment. No wonder you kicked that funker's ass like you did. He deserved worse, Xiu growled and meant it. So does Julian remind you of that? Sometimes when he's...
Xiu glanced at her boyfriend, who'd apparently decided that he'd deglittered himself as much as he practically could, and now settled on his bunk to read a book. She lowered her voice to make sure he couldn't hear.
When he gets intense, you know, when he gives you that hungry look. That's when he's the sexiest, Allison objected. Yeah, Xiu agreed. That's the problem. Mixed signals? Allison guessed. It turns you on and takes you back at the same time. Right.
Julian looked up from his book. Are you two talking about me behind my back? He asked.
Let us scheme in peace, you,
Allison told him with a grin. He chuckled and returned to his reading with a yes, ma'am, and Allison treated Xiu to a wink. A thought seemed to strike her.
What about me? What about you? Xiu asked. Do you have the same problem with me?
Xiu shook her head.
No. Well, if you're not ready for him...
Xiu got what she was driving at and laughed.
Al, I love listening to you and him. I think I'd like to watch sometime, and I want you to be there when I'm finally ready. And I really do love you, but I think I'm still basically straight. I know, Allison agreed. I know what you mean. I think I'm still basically straight too, but I am curious to know what it's like.
Xiu laughed.
You're incorrigible. Just so long as you're incorrigible, Allison punned.
Xiu laughed some more, then quieted.
I guess, she hazarded. My life's been so strange. I never know what's going to happen next. Let's face it, weirder things have happened to me. You're abducted by aliens, you're legally a Gowan, And you're training to fly a spaceship, Allison nodded. I'm just saying, next to all that... I'm not saying no, Xiu hastened to tell her. I'm just saying, let me work up to it, okay? More than fair, Allison smiled. Still, Xiu put a finger to her cheek and stared thoughtfully in Julian's direction. What? I don't know. I'm just thinking that perhaps I should start taking charge, like, I didn't get better at my fitness, my gung fu, my piloting, or at learning Gauri by just sitting back and wishing it would happen, did I? You're right, Allison agreed. And it'll be the same with your sex life, babe. If you want to have one, you're going to have to work on it. Crawl, walk, run, right? Xiu reached a decision. Okay. Allison's eyebrow arched upward. Okay? Okay, let's work on it. Looking distinctively like the cat who'd talked a mouse out of its hole, Allison sat forward and ran her tongue across her teeth. What do you have in mind? She asked. Date point. 10 years, 7 months, AV. The Alien Quarter. Folktha, Cimbrean. The Far Reaches. Eva Rios. Human access to the Alien Quarter was strictly controlled. Eva didn't get in at all without proving she was up to date on her frontline treatments, declaring her reason for visiting, logging her itinerary, passing through a decontamination biofilter force field, and donning a tracker that reported her position to CCS and timed her stay, up to the maximum duration of 4 hours. Fortunately, her press credentials, and frankly her name, helped her with the declaration and itinerary part. Gabriel would have been furious if the CCS checkpoint officers had explicitly shown favoritism to their boss's daughter, and he'd have been disappointed in Eva if she hadn't exploited it, but they were allowed to be a model of manners and polite helpfulness. Her trip through the checkpoint was uneventful, even if the biofilter did make her teeth feel funny and made her ear piercings tingle. Once through, and with the tracker on his lanyard politely ticking away her precious 240 minutes, her first step was in getting some pictures. She unholstered a camera and ran a practiced eye over the architecture, looking for interesting angles, framing, lighting, or places where she could achieve something interesting with depth of field. There had been some civil complaints when the quarter had been walled off. People had made alarmed noises about ghettoization and even apartheid, but the harsh reality of biology had made a physical barrier delineating where in here ended and out there began not only necessary, but inevitable. On the outside, the human side, every effort had been made to hide it, or, where it wasn't possible, to ensure that it wasn't an ugly wall. Buildings butted up against it, planters and trees obscured it, and the places where the pedestrian precincts of the town center exposed it, it had been given over to artwork. One section was even a back wall of a public stage. The ETs made no such attempt to sweep the wall under the rug. It was there, it was stark, and it was solid, as if they quite sensibly wanted a constant reminder that the well-meaning people on the other side of the wall could accidentally kill them all. Eva mentally scribbled a note to use that thought in whatever article her visit produced. Everyone knew where the checkpoint and sole access to the quarter was. It fronted onto Riverside Park, a stone's throw from the Multi-Faith Center. The idea was to facilitate human-ET mingling, and it largely worked. The black and white robed furry brothers of Clan Starmind ambling back and forth between the quarter and the center, often deep in conversation with a human counterpart from Folktha's small Soto monastery, were such a familiar sight in that part of the park that they'd long since ceased to be a joke and were now just part of Folktha's culture. Eva had never told anybody that Father Gaiaton had only discovered Zen Buddhism thanks to her. She hadn't expected it to go so far. The common knowledge had been that ETs tended to view human religions with a kind of bewildered incomprehension. When she had pointed Gaiaton towards the shelf containing the Buddhist literature, she'd never imagined that 6 years later there would be Gowan monks earnestly sweeping gravel paths. The area inside the gate was an extension of the park, but with alien architecture and alien plants carefully imported and protected from the native life by the force field roof that capped the whole wall. That force field was one of Folktha's major municipal power sources and doubled as a biofilter and a way of keeping the imported birds and bats from getting in. Under its aegis, alien insects flitted between alien flowers and were snacked on as the foundation of a small but balanced alien food chain. One pair of Vizcatic croaked something at her as they daintily passed, and she hastily turned on the translator built into her tracker. "I'm sorry?" she asked. "I said good afternoon," the Vizcatic replied. Oh, well, good afternoon to you too. The slender blue alien nodded his head slowly and carried on his way alongside his partner. Eva grabbed a snapshot of them going, framing their gracile silhouettes against the pale gray solidity of the wall. She spent the first allotment of her safe hours ambling along the quarter, taking it in, recording what she saw, swapping lenses often, playing with filters, lighting, and framing. She paid special attention to the banners and fabrics that hung from the buildings and to the buildings themselves. Eva had read up on architecture to help her with her photography and decided that the ET edifices lived somewhere in the general neighborhood of expressionism minus the concrete Cold War obduracy and with a subtle stretching quality that reflected the fact that several alien species were twice as tall as human, or even more. The buildings were all high-sided, curved and slender, and adorned with hanging banners. Brightly colored canopies were sprung between them so that they sheltered the streets from the nightly rains and made them glow with inherited color when the sunlight diffused through. The newly arrived Gowan females clearly had their own ideas about how their commune was going to look, though. Half-built though it was, it already stood out simply by being wood-framed, though its horseshoe shape and lines complemented rather than clashed with the general form of the buildings around it. Eva took a liking to it immediately. It was a distinctive landmark in a district where, for the most part, the best way to tell streets apart was by the hue of the canopy. Pretty though the alien-quartered streets were, they were a bit repetitive for her tastes. A pair of cubs rampaged past her as she got close, followed by a resigned-looking mother who was carrying far too many bags and barking at them to stand upright. "You're not four-pawed animals," she called. "Stand up straight!" She met Eva's amused eye, flicked both her ears in a gesture of maternal frustration that effortlessly ignored the species barrier and made Eva giggle, and carried on about whatever errand she was pursuing. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Eva called. The mother turned. "I'm looking for a Sister Myun." "You can find her easily," the Gowan replied. "She's the brown-furred pregnant one." "Thank you." Myun was indeed very easy to find. She was lying under the shade of an imported tree, watching a video on the holographic HUD that was projected in front of her eyes by the device clipped to her ear, and even though Eva was no expert on Gowry body language, she looked bored out of her mind. She perked up on realizing she had company, and even more so when she realized that she had human company. "Oh, hello." Eva smiled. The translator had given Myun a youthful alto voice that neatly matched what she could hear of her actual speech. "Hi," she introduced herself, offering her hand. Myun shook it with the confident air of an ET who was actually fairly familiar with humans. "I'm Eva." "Myun." "Oh, good. You're exactly who I was looking for." Myun rolled onto forepaws and stood up, dusting off her fur. "I am?" Eva and produced her press ID. "I'm with Extrasolar News Network. I was hoping I could talk to you, maybe get your thoughts on some things." "The news? I'm not really very important." "That's okay. I don't interview really important people." Myun's ears turned to the absolutely adorable angle of a Gowan trying to suss out human weirdness, and Eva decided an elaboration was in order. "I'm doing what's called an interest piece," she explained. "I want to hear your story, help our readers see into your life a little, and maybe gain some perspective and understand the world a little better." "That sounds good," Myun hazarded. "But why me?" "Oh, my dad's the chief of Colonial Security. I was talking with him this morning, and he mentioned that you've already taken a notion to the thing about making fusion swords legal on a security license." "That's right." Eva beamed encouragingly. "Well, I thought that sounds like a really interesting story, so I came to see if you'd be okay with talking to me for a bit." "Okay," Myun decided. "Can we walk and talk? I've been sitting around for far too long, and I find that walking around settles my cub." She patted her belly fondly. "Sure, but if it's okay, could I get you to sign this quickly?" Eva dug in her bag, grabbed her tablet, and called up the Gowry version of ESNN's release form. Myun peered at it. "Consent form," she read. "Just to say that you're okay with me recording our conversation and maybe editing it a bit for our magazine. We're keen on ethical journalism in ESNN, so you'll get a chance to look at it before we put it up for the public. And if there's anything you don't like, the editor can work with you, okay?" Myun nodded as she read, then signed the form by writing her name. "Thanks." Eva put the tablet away and deftly made sure her smartwatch was recording as they began a slow, ambling walk around the commune grounds. "So, congratulations on the cub. Are you getting close?" "Any day now. He's wriggling away in there."
Myun chittered and rubbed her belly again.
This is my first, and he should be a strong one, too. And you're how old? I'm 18 Gowan years old, Myun revealed. In human years, I think that's about 15. By human standards, that's a very young age to have a child, Eva told her. In fact, that's below Folk's legal age of consent. By Gowan standards, it's about average. We grow up more quickly. Are you planning to have more?
Myun imitated a human shake of her head, then remembered she was speaking to a microphone.
Eventually, in a few years, I want to study humans and human culture first. Is that why you came to Folktha? Oh, yes,
Myun duck nodded enthusiastically.
When I was offered the chance, I just knew I had to pounce. Ever since I was a cub, I've been you have a word, fangirl?
The English word sounded a little mangled coming from a Gowrie mouth and a strong accent, but Eva had to resist the urge to laugh.
Why is that?
She asked. The answer she got was much longer and much more surprising than she could ever have predicted. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am the Casual Deathworlder, your host, and this has been The Deathworlders, Chapter 29, Part 6. If you enjoyed this content, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and do the algorithm dance. As always, a huge shout out to my editor, Gregor. Thank you very much, buddy. I couldn't do this without you. Okay, one episode of this chapter left, and then we're officially into uncharted territory, Chapter 30, which will put us farther along in this story than anybody has ever recorded before. Can't wait. And that said, sorry for the delays. My life can be kind of chaotic sometimes. It can be a real pain in the ass. But I promise I'm not going to disappear on you anytime soon. And sorry for the background noises. I'm recording this episode in the middle of the day, so I have whole fleets of tourist helicopters flying overhead about every 3 to 5 minutes. Sounds kind of like Vietnam overhead. Gregor's threatened to put Ride at the Valkyries in the background to add authenticity. Personally, I think it should be either Painted Black or Fortunate Son. And for those wondering, Good Training will be back in about 3 to 4 chapters as soon as the timeline catches up. And now for a quick shout out. Riddle Valley, what was your initiative roll? DM rolled a 1. Roll saved versus biodroning. And now for the question of the day. What do y'all think SpaceX should do with the recovered Starship? Personally, I think it should be brought back and stuck in the rocket garden. It's kind of a historical thing. The first soft splashdown. Leave your answers in the comments below. Until next time, be safe, be well. I love you all. Bye-bye. The black and white robed furry brothers of Clan Starmind ambling back and forth between the quarter and the center, often deep in conversation with a human counterpart from Folktha's small Soto monastery, were such a familiar sight in that part of the park that they'd long since ceased to be a joke and were now just part of Folktha's culture. That is one fucking sentence. Jesus fucking Christ, Hambone.